The message arrived on a cold morning at Terran Command Headquarters. Admiral Elena Korsakov stood in the communications center, watching the holographic display flicker to life. The alien face that appeared was tall and angular, with purple skin that seemed to shimmer under artificial light. 4 eyes blinked in sequence as the creature spoke. "I am High Executor Vral Thun of the Calrathian Galactic Empire," the alien announced. His voice carried the weight of authority that came from ruling thousands of worlds. "We are informing you of Imperial Decree 7743. The 12 star systems you call the border worlds now fall under our expansion zone. You have 30 standard days to evacuate all human presence. Failure to comply will result in forced integration into the Empire." The message ended abruptly. The communication center fell silent. Technicians looked at each other nervously. Some whispered. Others simply stared at their screens. Elena had seen war before. She had fought pirates in the outer colonies and put down 3 separate rebellions. But this was different. The Calrathian Empire controlled 47 star systems. They commanded thousands of different alien species. Their military had existed for 10,000 years, longer than human civilization itself. "Admiral?" her second-in-command asked. Commander James Park stood beside her, his dark eyes reflecting the glow of the displays. "What are your orders?" Elena turned away from the hologram. She walked to the large window that overlooked Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below, peaceful and unaware of the threat that had just arrived. Somewhere down there, people were eating breakfast, going to work, playing with their children. They had no idea that an empire spanning half the galaxy had just demanded humanity abandon 12 worlds. "Schedule an emergency meeting with the Colonial Council and the Defense Committee," Elena said quietly. "Then prepare the 3rd Fleet for deployment. We're going to the border." "The 3rd Fleet?" Park's voice rose slightly. "Admiral, that's our newest dreadnought and 40 support ships. If we move them to the border, the Calrathians might see it as aggression." Elena turned to face him. Her gray eyes were cold and steady. "Commander, they just told us to abandon our homes. They've already decided we're insignificant. Let them see what we think of their ultimatum." The next morning, Elena sat in a conference room with 12 holographic projections. Each one represented a colonial governor from the border worlds. They were angry, frightened, and looking to her for answers. "They can't just take our worlds," Governor Ramirez said. She led the colony on Theta 7, a mining world with 3 million people. "We've been there for 70 years. We built those cities. We raised our children there. The Empire doesn't care," Ambassador Shelar said. The Federation observer had joined the meeting to provide context. She was a slim creature with silver skin and too many fingers. "The Calrathians have done this to 40 other species. You either join them or you leave. Those are the only options they give." "What happens if we refuse?" asked Governor Chen from Delta Station. Shelar's expression was difficult to read, but her tone was clear. "No one has ever refused them. They have weapons that can crack planets, ships that can block out stars. The last species that resisted was the Vorlathi. The Empire destroyed their homeworld as a lesson. 3 billion dead in an afternoon." The room fell silent. Elena could see the fear spreading across the governor's faces. They were civilians, not soldiers. They had families to protect. "Admiral Korsakov," Governor Ramirez said slowly, "what does Terran Command recommend?" Elena stood up. She had been thinking about this question all night. She had reviewed every military report, every tactical analysis, every probability calculation. The numbers were clear. Humanity had 200 years of space travel. The Calrathians had 10,000. Earth had maybe 500 military ships. The Empire had fleets beyond counting, but she had also studied human history. She knew what her species was capable of when pushed into a corner. "We fight," Elena said simply. The governors erupted in protest. Voices overlapped, some shouting, others pleading. Ambassador Shelar simply stared at Elena as if she had gone insane. "You can't be serious," Governor Chen said. "They'll destroy us." "Maybe," Elena admitted. "But I've read the reports on the Empire. They're big, they're old, they're powerful. But they haven't fought a real war in 3,000 years. Every species they've encountered either ran away or surrendered immediately. They don't know how to fight an enemy that refuses to lose." "And you think we can refuse?" Ramirez asked. "I think we're human," Elena said. "We spent 10,000 years fighting each other over every scrap of land and resources on Earth. We nearly destroyed ourselves 3 times before we reached the stars. We're not good at a lot of things, but we're very good at fighting. Park brought up a tactical display. It showed the border region, with human colonies marked in blue and the Empire's territory in red. The difference in size was frightening. Even if we wanted to fight, how would we do it? One governor asked. Elena pointed at the display. The Empire thinks we're primitives. They think we'll panic and run. We're going to use that. I'm taking the 3rd Fleet to the border right now. We're going to establish defensive positions at every colony. We're going to make it clear that this line doesn't move. What if they attack? Governor Chen asked. Then we show them what humans do when someone tries to take our homes, Elena said. The meeting ended with a vote. 8 governors voted to support military resistance. 4 wanted to negotiate. It was enough. Terran Command had authorization to defend the border. 3 days later, Elena stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable. The massive ship was the pride of the Terran fleet, bristling with weapons and armor. Around her, 40 other ships moved in formation. Cruisers and destroyers and carriers filled with fighter craft. They emerged from faster-than-light travel at the border beacon, a massive station that marked the edge of human space. The beacon's lights pulsed in the darkness, a statement that humanity claimed this territory. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the Calrathians, the communications officer reported. Put it through, Elena ordered. High Executive Vral Thun appeared again. This time his 4 eyes narrowed when he saw her uniform. You're making a mistake, human. Our fleets are gathering. Our strength is beyond your comprehension. Leave now while you still can. Elena stepped forward, making sure the camera captured her clearly. Behind her, the bridge crew worked at their stations, calm and professional. She wanted the Empire to see that humans weren't afraid. High Executor, I am Admiral Elena Korsakov of Terran Command. You have demanded we abandon our colonies. We refuse. The border worlds are sovereign human territory. Any attempt to cross this line will be considered an act of war. This is your only warning. Turn back or discover why humanity doesn't yield. She cut the transmission before he could respond. Park approached her quietly. Admiral, that was the Calrathian Galactic Empire. They've never been refused before. They're going to come for us now. Elena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Empire was watching. They were probably laughing, thinking humanity had signed its own death warrant. Let them come, she said softly. The line holds here. The Indomitable's engines hummed with power. Around the fleet, defensive drones deployed. Sensor arrays swept the darkness. Every ship went to combat readiness. The border was drawn. The ultimatum was rejected. Whatever happened next would echo across the galaxy for generations. Elena didn't know if humanity could win this fight, but she knew with absolute certainty that they would fight it anyway. That was what humans did. They stood at the edge of the impossible and dared it to push them back. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it had forgotten over 10,000 years of peace. Some species would run from overwhelming force. Some would negotiate. Some would surrender. Humans did none of these things. They simply drew a line and said no. 29 days passed. The Calrathian Empire kept its word. On the morning of the 30th day, sensors across the border lit up with contacts. 300 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in the Theta 7 system. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the destroyer Defiant, watching the sensor display fill with red markers. Each marker represented a Calrathian warship. They came in neat formations, massive vessels that dwarfed his single destroyer. The smallest of their ships was twice the size of the Defiant. Captain, we're being hailed, his communications officer reported. The young woman's voice stayed steady, but Webb could see her hand shaking slightly. Put it through. The Calrathian fleet commander appeared on screen. He was shorter than High Executive Vral Thun, with darker purple skin marked by ritual scars. His name translated as something close to war leader Krathna. Human vessel, you are violating Imperial expansion protocols. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be relocated to a processing center. Resistance is futile and will result in your destruction. Webb looked around his bridge. He saw 19 crew members, most of them young, all of them volunteers who had asked to serve on border patrol. They knew what they were signing up for. They knew the risks. War leader Krathna. Webb replied calmly, you are violating sovereign Terran space. This system is under the protection of Terran Command. This is your only warning. Turn your fleet around and leave. Krathna's expression changed. For a moment, Webb saw genuine confusion on the alien's face. Then the war leader began to laugh. The sound was harsh and grating through the translator. "One ship," Krathna said between laughs. "One tiny ship threatens 300 Imperial vessels. Your species is even more foolish than we believed. We will take your ship as a trophy. Your bravery, while misguided, deserves to be remembered." "My bravery?" Webb smiled, though there was no humor in it. "War leader, I'm not brave. I'm just human. There's a difference." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Weapons, what's our status?" "All railgun arrays charged and ready, Captain," the weapons officer reported. Lieutenant Sarah Chen had designed half the systems on this ship herself. "We're locked onto priority targets. Helm, emergency burn on my mark. Navigation, plot micro jumps for hit and run." The Calrathian fleet began moving forward. They came slowly, confidently. 300 ships advancing on one destroyer. They didn't even bother with battle formations. This wasn't a fight. This was an execution. "Captain, they're charging weapons," the tactical officer called out. "Wait for it," Webb said quietly. The Calrathians closed to 20,000 kilometers. Their lead ships began targeting solutions. Webb could see the weapon signatures building on his sensors. "Now," he said simply. The Defiant opened fire. Humanity had been building weapons for thousands of years. They started with rocks and sticks, moved to swords and arrows, invented gunpowder and missiles and nuclear weapons. When they reached the stars, they brought that same violent creativity with them. The railgun was an old concept, simple physics applied with human determination. Accelerate a solid projectile to impossible speeds and let kinetic energy do the rest. No warheads needed. No explosives. Just pure momentum transfer. The Defiant's experimental arrays fired 30 rounds per second. Each round was a depleted uranium slug the size of a fist, traveling at 3% the speed of light. At that speed, even the smallest projectile hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The Calrathian shields had been designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. They weren't designed for solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The first volley hit 6 ships simultaneously. Shields flickered and collapsed. Armor meant nothing. The slugs punched through hulls, vaporizing everything in their path. 2 ships exploded outright. 4 more lost power and began drifting, trailing atmosphere and debris. "Evasive maneuvers," Webb ordered. The Defiant's engines screamed as the destroyer broke away from its position. Calrathian return fire lit up the space where they had been moments before. "Targets acquired," Chen reported. Firing, another volley. Another 6 ships crippled or destroyed. The Calrathians had never faced weapons like this. Their doctrine assumed energy shields could protect them. Their tactics relied on overwhelming firepower from large, slow-moving capital ships. The Defiant was small, fast, and hitting far above its weight class. "Captain," detecting massive energy spike, the sensor officer called out. "They're bringing their dreadnoughts forward." Webb checked the display. 4 massive ships, each one the size of a city, were moving to engage. Their weapons could turn a planet into ash. One hit would vaporize the Defiant. "Time to leave," Webb said. "Navigation, execute microjump. Take us to Rally Point Delta." The Defiant vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving the stunned Calrathian fleet behind. War leader Krathna stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 12 ships destroyed, 28 more damaged. All from one human destroyer, impossible. "Pursue that ship," he ordered. "All vessels converge on its last known vector." War leader, "We're detecting multiple new contacts," his sensor operator reported. 100, 200, 400 contacts and rising. Krathna felt something he hadn't experienced in 300 years of military service. Fear. The human Third Fleet emerged from stealth. Admiral Korsakov had positioned them in a wide sphere around the system, waiting. The Defiant had been bait, and the Calrathians had taken it eagerly. Now they were surrounded. "All ships weapons free," Elena ordered from the Indomitable. "Execute attack pattern Sigma." The battle that followed was brutal and short. The Calrathian fleet had numbers, but the humans had planned every second of this engagement. Destroyers equipped with railguns swept the flanks. Cruisers launched swarms of missiles that overwhelmed point defenses. The Indomitable itself fired its main cannon, a macer array that could cut through shields like they weren't there. The Calrathians fought back. Their weapons were powerful, refined over thousands of years. They destroyed 15 human ships in the first 10 minutes, but they were fighting an enemy that didn't fear death, and that made all the difference. Human ships that took critical damage didn't retreat. They accelerated toward enemy vessels and rammed them. Crew members stayed at their stations even as ships came apart around them, firing weapons until the last possible second. 2 hours into the battle, war leader Krathna gave the order to retreat. His fleet had been reduced to less than 100 ships. The humans had lost 40 vessels but showed no signs of stopping. As the surviving Calrathian ships fled into faster-than-light travel, Krathna recorded a message for High Executor Vralthun. The humans fought like nothing we have ever encountered. They do not value their lives over victory. Their weapons are crude but effective. Their tactics are unpredictable. I recommend we reconsider this expansion. He sent the message, knowing it would likely end his career. The Empire did not accept defeat. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Elena watched the enemy fleet disappear. Around her, the crew erupted in cheers. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But Elena didn't celebrate. She knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would be angry now. They would come back with more ships, more weapons, more determination. "Commander Park," she said quietly. "Yes, Admiral. Get me Terran command. Tell them we need every ship, every weapon, every soldier we can spare. The Empire will return, and when they do, they won't underestimate us again." She looked out at the stars, at the debris field where 40 human ships had died defending their home. Their crews had known the risks. They had fought anyway. And Park? Tell the shipyards to start building more destroyers like the Defiant. A lot more. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The Calrathian Empire, undefeated for 10,000 years, had lost a battle to a species barely 2 centuries old. Governments watched. Military analysts studied the engagement. Traders began calculating new routes that avoided human space. Ambassador Shilar sent a report to her superiors. It concluded with a simple assessment. The humans cannot win this war, but they may not lose it either. The Empire has awakened something dangerous. At border stations across human space, crews prepared for the next assault. They strengthened defenses, stocked ammunition, said goodbye to loved ones. They knew what was coming. The galaxy was about to witness something it hadn't seen in millennia. A real war. Not a conquest. Not an integration. A fight between two forces that refused to break. And humanity had just proven they knew how to make it hurt. High Executor Vralthun stood in the Grand Chamber on the Calrathian throne world. Around him, the Council of Dominance waited in silence. The ancient hall had witnessed 10,000 years of imperial victories. Today it would hear about defeat. 200 ships lost, Vralthun said, his 4 eyes scanning the council members. To a species we considered primitive. To creatures who have barely learned to travel between stars. This is unacceptable. Subcommander Relka, oldest member of the council, spoke carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider this expansion. The humans have proven more capable than anticipated. We could negotiate, establish a treaty recognizing their border. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in anger and disbelief. The concept of negotiation was foreign to the Empire. They conquered or they ignored. Those were the only options. Vralthun raised one clawed hand for silence. The Empire does not negotiate with inferiors. We have ruled this galaxy for longer than most species have existed. If we show weakness now, if we allow one defeat to change our course, how many others will think they can resist us? He turned to the strategic display that dominated the chamber. It showed the entire galaxy, with Imperial territory marked in purple. The human space was a tiny blue dot on the edge. We will mobilize the core fleets, Vralthun announced. 5,000 ships. Every weapon we possess. We will not simply defeat the humans. We will erase them. We will make their homeworld a monument to the price of resistance. 5,000 ships? Relka looked shocked. High Executor, that is more force than we have deployed in 3,000 years. It will cost immense resources, take months to assemble. Then we begin immediately, Vralthun said coldly. The humans will learn what it means to defy the Empire. On Earth, Admiral Korsakov stood in the war room deep beneath Terran Command headquarters. 45 days had passed since the Battle of Theta 7. Intelligence reports covered every wall, all saying the same thing. The Empire was coming, and they were bringing everything. 5,000 ships confirmed, Commander Park said, pointing at the latest reconnaissance data. They're gathering at staging points across 3 systems. Our analysts believe they'll attack in 3 waves. The first will hit our outer colonies, the second will target the border stations, and the third will push straight for Earth. General Marcus Hayes, head of Terran ground forces, studied the projections. Even if we pull every ship from every system, we can barely muster 600 vessels. We're outnumbered 8 to 1. 10 to 1, Park corrected. Some of our ships are still under construction. The new destroyers won't be ready for another month. Elena looked at the faces around her. These were the best military minds humanity had produced. Generals and admirals who had spent lifetimes studying warfare, and every single one of them knew the numbers didn't add up. We can't win a straight fight, Elena said simply. So we don't fight straight. What do you propose? Hayes asked. Elena pulled up a new display. It showed the border systems, but now they were marked with different symbols. Red for minefields, blue for automated defense platforms, green for mobile strike groups. We turn every colony into a fortress. We mine every approach vector. We fill space with weapons that don't need crews. For every ship they bring, we'll have 10,000 automated systems waiting to kill it. That will take enormous resources, someone objected. Then we use every resource we have, Elena shot back. Every mining station, every construction yard, every factory on every world. We've been at peace for 50 years. We've built a civilization. Now we turn that civilization into a weapon. And if it's not enough, General Hayes asked quietly. Elena's expression hardened. Then we make them pay for every meter of space. We make them bleed for every colony. We make them remember that humans don't surrender. She pulled up footage from the Battle of Theta 7, showing the moment Captain Webb's Defiant opened fire. The Empire thinks they know warfare because they've conquered so many species. But those species always ran or surrendered. They never fought back. We're going to teach the Calrathians what real war looks like. The meeting continued for 6 hours. Plans were drawn up, resources allocated, and orders sent to every corner of human space. Earth's orbital shipyards moved to triple shifts. Mining colonies began producing nothing but military-grade materials. Even civilian ships were being retrofitted with weapons. In the Theta 7 colony, Governor Ramirez addressed her people through a planet-wide broadcast. 3 million faces looked up at screens listening. The Empire is coming, she said without softening the truth. They're bringing thousands of ships. They intend to take our world or destroy it. Terran Command has offered evacuation. Any civilian who wants to leave will be transported to Earth. She paused, watching the crowd's reaction. Some people looked frightened. Others looked angry. All of them looked determined. But I'm not leaving, Ramirez continued. This is my home. I raised my daughter here. I buried my husband in the cemetery on the northern continent. I'm not abandoning it to some empire that thinks they can take whatever they want. She gestured to the screen behind her, showing construction crews working around the clock. Those of you who choose to stay, we're going to fight. Not as soldiers, we're not military, but we can help. We can build defenses. We can operate automated systems. We can make it so expensive to take this world that the Empire wishes they never tried. The response surprised even Ramirez. 80% of the population voted to stay. They couldn't all fight, so the children and elderly were evacuated. But everyone else remained, turning their colony into a fortress. Similar scenes played out across all 12 border worlds. Civilians became militia. Farming communities became military installations. Humanity showed a talent for war that came from thousands of years of fighting each other. Captain Marcus Webb, now promoted to commander after his actions at Theta 7, oversaw the construction of new destroyer squadrons. The Defiant had proven the design. Now they were building 50 more ships just like it. The railgun arrays are efficient but expensive, his chief engineer reported. We're stripping resources from civilian infrastructure to build them. Strip whatever you need, Webb said. When the Empire arrives, nobody will care about civilian infrastructure if we're all dead. He watched the construction through the station's observation window. Ships took shape in the void, built at speeds that would have been impossible a year ago. Humanity had always been good at building when necessary. Ambassador Shelar sent regular reports to the Federation Council. Her latest message was particularly urgent. The humans are not preparing for battle. They are preparing for extinction-level warfare. Every colony, every station, every asteroid has been militarized. They are spending resources at an unsustainable rate. If they survive the Empire's assault, their economy will take decades to recover. They are betting everything on this defense. She paused, then added a personal note. I have observed 43 different species over my career. None have shown this level of commitment to a seemingly unwinnable fight. The humans either don't understand the odds or they don't care. I suspect it's the latter. 60 days after Theta 7, Elena received the first reports of Empire fleet movements. They were coming just as intelligence had predicted. 3 massive armadas, each one larger than anything humanity had ever assembled. She stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now stationed at the border's central defense point. Around her, 90 ships waited in formation. It was the largest concentration of human military force since the colony wars. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the border stations," communications reported. They're all saying the same thing. The Empire's first wave just entered sensor range. 2,000 ships confirmed. Elena felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. Millions of lives depended on the decisions she made in the next few hours. Earth itself could fall if she failed, but she also felt something else. Pride, not in herself, but in her species. Against impossible odds, facing an enemy with 10,000 years of conquest behind them, humanity had looked at the approaching doom and decided to fight anyway. "All stations, this is Admiral Korsakov," she broadcast on all channels. "The Empire is here. They think their numbers will break us. They think we'll panic and surrender. They're wrong. Every human throughout history who stood against impossible odds, everyone who fought when retreat was the smart choice, they're with us now. The line holds. Today, tomorrow, forever. The line holds." Across 12 star systems, across hundreds of stations and thousands of ships, millions of humans heard her words. They weren't professional soldiers, most of them. They were miners and engineers, farmers and teachers, parents and children who had never wanted war. But they were human, and humans knew how to fight. The first wave of the Calrathian assault began. 2,000 ships crossed the border, heading for the outer colonies. They expected resistance. They expected a battle. They got a massacre. The humans had turned space itself into a weapon. Every kilometer was watched, mined, and defended. The Empire's ships flew into a prepared kill zone, and humanity showed them what 200 years of weapons development could achieve when you never stopped preparing for war. The Calrathian first wave hit the outer defenses of the Theta system like a hammer. 2,000 ships, weapons charged, shields at maximum. War leader Krathna, given a chance to redeem himself, led the assault. He expected the humans to meet him with their fleet, to fight ship to ship in honorable combat. Instead, he flew into hell. The first mines detonated when his vanguard was 50,000 kilometers from the colony. They weren't traditional explosives. Humans had spent 60 days building something worse. Nuclear-pumped lasers, thousands of them, hidden in debris fields and powered by small fusion warheads. When they activated, they turned empty space into a web of cutting energy. 300 ships died in the first 30 seconds. Shields meant nothing when the attack came from every direction at once. Calrathian vessels that had survived 1,000 battles simply came apart, cut into pieces by invisible beams of coherent light. "Evasive action," Krathna screamed, but there was nowhere to go. The minefield extended for millions of kilometers. Every time his ships tried to maneuver, they triggered more weapons. Then the railgun platforms opened fire. Humanity had built them in secret, disguised as sensor arrays and communication satellites. Each platform held a single railgun, less powerful than those on the Defiant, but still deadly. They fired solid slugs at fractional light speed, and the Calrathians learned what their shields couldn't stop. "Fall back to defensive formation," Krathna ordered. His fleet tried to regroup, pulling into a tight sphere where they could support each other with overlapping fire. It was standard Imperial doctrine tested over thousands of years. It was also exactly what the humans wanted them to do. The asteroid came out of nowhere. The Calrathians detected it far too late, a chunk of rock 5 kilometers across, accelerating on chemical rockets that had been attached months ago. It wasn't moving at relativistic speeds, but it didn't need to. At 500 kilometers per second, mass was mass. The asteroid hit the center of the Calrathian formation and shattered. Fragments tore through shields and armor. Ships that survived the initial impact found themselves trapped in a debris field traveling at lethal velocity. Hundreds more vessels died, crushed or torn apart by simple kinetic force. Commander Webb watched from his destroyer, now part of Strike Group Delta. 50 ships, small and fast, positioned throughout the system. They had stayed hidden during the initial assault, waiting for their moment. "All ships weapons free," he ordered. "Attack pattern Web 7. The human strike group hit the Calrathians from behind. Railguns fired, missiles launched, and close-range lasers cut through damaged ships. The Empire's fleet, reeling from the automated defenses, suddenly found themselves fighting an actual military force. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, less than 800 Calrathian ships retreated. The humans lost 19 vessels, most of them damaged platforms and stations. The kill ratio was nearly 40-1. High Executor Vralthun received the report in stunned silence. 2,000 ships sent. 800 returned. The humans had turned the Theta system into a death trap. Deploy the second wave, he ordered. 3,000 ships. Sweep the minefields clear before advancing. Use our heavy siege vessels to destroy the platforms from range. The second wave learned from the first. They came slowly, methodically, sending expendable drones ahead to trigger the mines. They kept their distance from the automated platforms, using long-range weapons to destroy them one by one. It took them 10 days to clear a single approach corridor to the colony. Admiral Korsakov watched their progress from the Indomitable. They're adapting, she told Commander Park. Good. It means they think they understand our strategy, don't they? Park asked. Elena smiled without humor. They understand what we've shown them. They have no idea what we've hidden. The Calrathian second wave finally reached the Theta system's inner defenses on day 75. 3,000 ships against Commander Webb's 50 destroyers and the colony's orbital platforms. The numbers were overwhelming. That's when Governor Ramirez activated Project Scorpion. The colony itself transformed. Manufacturing facilities that appeared to be producing civilian goods revealed their true purpose. Hundreds of missile silos built underground over 60 days opened and launched their payloads. Not toward the Calrathian fleet, but into stable orbits around the colony. Thousands of small satellites, each one carrying a simple payload. Ball bearings, millions of them, released into orbital paths calculated to intersect with any approach vector to the planet. The Calrathians detected them too late. At orbital velocities, even a ball bearing hit with devastating force. The small projectiles tore through ships that got too close to the colony, turning the planet into an untouchable fortress surrounded by a shell of kinetic weapons. Clever, the Calrathian fleet commander admitted, but we can wait. We will blockade the planet. Eventually their resources will run out. Then Webb's strike group hit them again, and again, and again. Hit-and-run attacks from unexpected angles. The human destroyers would appear, fire their railguns, and vanish into faster-than-light travel before the Calrathians could respond. They couldn't be everywhere, but they didn't need to be. They just needed to make the Empire's fleet constantly worried about the next attack. On day 80, the Mars volunteers arrived. They weren't military ships. They were mining vessels, cargo haulers, and civilian transports. 300 ships crewed by volunteers from the Mars colonies. People who had no military training but plenty of courage. Their ships had been modified, weapons removed to make room for a single system. Each vessel carried a faster-than-light drive programmed for one final jump. They came in waves, targeting the largest Calrathian vessels. The Empire's sensors detected them and marked them as non-threats. Civilian ships, probably trying to evacuate. Then the mining ships activated their drives while still in normal space. Physics didn't like it when you tried to enter faster-than-light travel near massive objects. The result was predictable and catastrophic. Each mining ship created a spatial distortion that tore apart everything nearby. They were suicide weapons, one-time use bombs that destroyed the ship and everything around it. The Mars volunteers took down 47 Calrathian capital ships. Every single volunteer died, but they made the Empire pay in blood for every meter of space. The galaxy watched in horror and fascination. Ambassador Shilar sent urgent reports. The humans are fighting with tactics we've never seen. They use their civilians as weapons. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. This is not warfare as we understand it. This is something primal. The Calrathian second wave retreated on day 82. They had lost over 1,000 ships. The humans had destroyed or damaged another quarter of the Empire's assault force, and the border colonies still stood. High Executor Vralthun faced growing pressure from the Council of Dominance. We have lost 3,000 ships, Sub-Commander Relka stated. The humans have lost perhaps 200. This cannot continue. It will not, Vralthun said coldly. Deploy the third wave, every remaining ship. We will break through their defenses and strike at Earth itself. Once their homeworld is threatened, they will surrender. But he was wrong about humans in a fundamental way. They didn't fight harder when they had something to protect. They fought harder when they had something to lose. Admiral Korsakov received intelligence that the Empire's final assault was coming. Every ship they had left, nearly 2,000 vessels heading straight for Earth. She gathered her fleet at the Gateway Station, the last defensive position before humanity's home system. 90 ships battered and damaged from months of fighting. They were outnumbered 20-1. "Admiral, we can't win this fight," Commander Park said quietly. "No," Elena agreed, "but we can make it so expensive that the Empire never tries again." She broadcast to her fleet. "This is it. Everything we fought for. Everyone who died at Theta and Delta and Mars, it all comes down to this. Behind us is Earth. 4 billion people who don't know how close they came to extinction. Ahead of us is an empire that thinks conquest is their right." She paused, looking at the faces on the screens. Young faces mostly. People who should have been living peaceful lives. "They're wrong," Elena continued. "We're going to prove them wrong. The line holds here at Gateway Station. If we fall fighting. If we win, we change the galaxy forever. Either way, we make them remember that humans don't yield." The Calrathian third wave appeared on sensors. 2,000 ships, the largest single fleet the Empire had deployed in 3 millennia. They came in battle formation, shields overlapping, weapons charged. At Gateway Station, 90 human ships waited. Behind them, Earth turned peacefully in space, unaware of the apocalypse approaching. Commander Webb's destroyer, patched up after 4 major battles, took position at Elena's side. Governor Ramirez, commanding an armed civilian cruiser crewed by Theta colonists, held the left flank. The Mars Memorial Squadron, named for the volunteers who died, held the right. "All ships," Elena said softly. "For Earth, for humanity. For everyone we've lost, fire." The Battle of Gateway Station began. It would last 3 days, and when it ended, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. Day 1 of the Battle of Gateway Station was pure chaos. The Calrathian fleet came in hard and fast, trying to overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers. 2,000 ships against 90. The mathematics should have been simple, but mathematics didn't account for human determination. Admiral Korsakov's fleet didn't try to hold a line. Instead, they flowed like water, moving through the Calrathian formation in small groups. Destroyers equipped with railguns would appear, fire devastating salvos, then vanish behind the cover of larger ships. Cruisers launched missile swarms that confused sensors and overwhelmed point defenses. Even damaged ships contributed, using their last power to ram enemy vessels or detonate their reactors at close range. High Executor Vralthun watched the battle from his command ship, the Imperial Glory, a massive dreadnought that had never seen defeat in 800 years of service. He couldn't understand what he was witnessing. "They're not following any tactical doctrine," his tactical officer reported, confusion clear in his voice. "Every ship operates independently. There's no unified command structure we can target." "Then destroy them all," Vralthun ordered. "Concentrate fire. Eliminate their vessels one by one." But the humans wouldn't stay still long enough to be eliminated. They fought like they had trained for this their entire lives because in a way they had. Every human grew up learning about Earth's wars, about desperate last stands and impossible victories. They carried that history in their blood. Commander Webb's destroyer took heavy fire in the first hour. His shields failed, his armor cracked, and half his crew died when a Calrathian energy weapon carved through the engineering section. But the Defiant kept fighting. Webb redirected all power to weapons and engines, turning his ship into a missile with railguns attached. "Captain, we've lost life support on decks 3 through 7, his first officer reported. The woman's face was covered in blood from a head wound, but she stayed at her station. "Reactor is at critical levels. We have maybe 10 minutes before containment fails. Then we make those 10 minutes count," Webb said calmly. He targeted the nearest Calrathian heavy cruiser. Helm ramming speed. The Defiant accelerated toward the enemy ship. Calrathian point defenses tore into the destroyer, but Webb's ship was already dead. It was just moving fast enough to take someone with it. The collision destroyed both vessels. The explosion lit up the battlefield for a brief moment, bright enough to be seen from Earth's surface. Commander Marcus Webb died doing what he had done since the war began, fighting. Admiral Korsakov saw the explosion and felt something cold settle in her chest. Webb had been a good officer, a good man. He deserved better than dying in the void of space. But there was no time for grief. The battle continued. "Admiral, we're down to 70 ships," Commander Park reported. His uniform was torn, and smoke filled the bridge from a fire in the ventilation system. The Indomitable had taken enormous damage, but it still fought. "The Calrathians have lost about 300 vessels, but they're adjusting their tactics. They're trying to surround us." Helena looked at the tactical display. Park was right. The Empire fleet was spreading out, trying to encircle the human forces and eliminate them through concentrated fire from all directions. "Signal all ships," Helena ordered. "Fall back to Earth's orbital space. We're going home." The retreat wasn't a surrender. It was a calculated move. The humans pulled back toward Earth, and the Calrathian fleet pursued. They thought they had won, thought the humans were finally breaking. They crossed into Earth's orbital defense perimeter on day 2 of the battle. Earth had spent 90 days preparing. Every orbital station had been armed. Every satellite had been repurposed. The moon's construction facilities had been building weapons platforms around the clock. Earth itself had transformed from a peaceful world into a fortress. When the Calrathian fleet entered firing range, the entire planet opened fire. Thousands of weapons, from the smallest point defense laser to massive orbital railguns that used Earth's own rotation to add velocity to their projectiles. The humans had turned their home world into a weapon, and they used it without hesitation. The Calrathian fleet took catastrophic losses. Ships that had survived months of fighting died in seconds, torn apart by weapons fire from every direction. High Executive Vralthun watched his fleet disintegrate around him. "Withdraw," he ordered, his voice hollow. "All ships emergency faster than light travel. Get us out of this system." But Admiral Korsakov wasn't done. She had kept one secret in reserve, one final weapon. Project Prometheus had been under development since the war began. A theoretical weapon that military scientists said was possible but dangerous. "Deploy Prometheus," Helena ordered quietly. In orbit around Earth, hidden among the defense platforms, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had seen before activated. It was simple in concept. Take a solid mass, any mass would do. Accelerate it using a massive electromagnetic launcher. Keep accelerating it until it reached a significant fraction of light speed. Then release it. The projectile was a tungsten rod 3 meters long and half a meter wide. Nothing special about it except the speed. When it launched, it was traveling at 90% the speed of light. At that velocity, the rod had more kinetic energy than most nuclear weapons. It didn't need explosives. It didn't need warheads. It was just mass and speed, turned into a weapon of almost unimaginable power. The rod hit the Imperial Glory dead center. High Executor Vralthun had one moment to realize what was happening. Then physics took over. The impact released energy equivalent to a large nuclear weapon, but concentrated into a much smaller point. The Imperial Glory, a ship that had survived 800 years of warfare, simply ceased to exist. The shockwave from the impact spread outward, crippling or destroying every ship within 10,000 kilometers. The Calrathian fleet broke completely. Nearly half their remaining ships were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The survivors fled, jumping to faster-than-light travel in panic, abandoning their dead and wounded. Admiral Korsakov stood on the ruined bridge of the Indomitable. Around her, the crew was silent. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. 70 human ships had entered the Battle of Gateway Station. 15 survived, all heavily damaged. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the Calrathian remnants," communications reported. "They're requesting terms of surrender." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. Surrender. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was asking humanity for terms. Then we want a formal treaty," she said. "Recognition of all human borders. Reparations for the colonies they damaged. And a guarantee they will never cross our space again." The treaty was signed 3 weeks later on Earth. High Executor Vralthun was dead, killed when his ship was destroyed. The new leadership of the Calrathian Empire came in person to sign what would be known as the Treaty of Terra. Ambassador Shilar attended as a neutral witness. She watched as the empire that had conquered countless worlds formally recognized the sovereignty of humanity. "It should have been impossible. How?" she asked Elena after the ceremony. "You were outnumbered, outgunned, facing an enemy with thousands of years of experience. How did you win?" Elena looked out at Earth, the blue planet turning peacefully below. We didn't have a choice, she said simply. They demanded we abandon our homes. What were we supposed to do? Run? Surrender? That's not what humans do. But the cost, Shilar pressed. Thousands dead. Entire fleets destroyed. Colonies damaged. Was it worth it? Yes, Elena said without hesitation. Because now everyone knows. You can't take human territory. You can't force us to leave. You can't make us surrender. The border is sacred. It holds always. The galaxy learned that lesson well. News of humanity's victory spread quickly. Other species looked at their own borders differently now. The Calrathians had been the strongest empire in known space, and a young species barely 2 centuries into space travel had stopped them cold. At Gateway Station, where the final battle had been fought, humanity built a monument, a simple structure, listing the names of every ship and every crew member who had died defending Earth. At the top, in letters visible from space, was a single line. The line holds. Commander Webb's name was on that monument, along with thousands of others. The Mars volunteers had their own section, each name accompanied by the phrase, "Greater love has none." Governor Ramirez returned to Theta 7 to rebuild. The colony was damaged but not destroyed. People came back, bringing their families, their dreams, their determination to make a home among the stars. Admiral Elena Korsakov was promoted to Supreme Commander of Terran forces. She spent the rest of her career making sure humanity never forgot the lessons of the war. Never underestimate your enemy. Never give up territory without a fight. And never ever assume someone else will save you. At every border station, every colony, every human outpost in the galaxy, a beacon was placed. Each one broadcast the same message in every known language. This is sovereign Terran territory. The border is clearly marked. Do not cross. Do not test. Do not threaten. We have proven what happens to those who ignore this warning. The line holds here. The Calrathian Empire never recovered its former glory. The defeated Earth damaged more than their fleet. It damaged their reputation, their confidence, their belief in inevitable victory.